You know, for over 40 years, one band has been this constant, kind of chaotic, but always creative force in heavy metal. They're a cornerstone of the whole genre, but they've always marched to the beat of their own drum. So today, let's unpack the absolutely wild story of Anthrax.
Okay, so picture this. It's the early 1980s. There's this new sound just exploding out of America. It's way faster, heavier, and more aggressive than pretty much anything that came before it. It gets the name thrash metal, and pretty quickly, four bands climb right to the top, becoming known to fans everywhere as the Big Four. But here's the thing. While three of those bands were busy building their legacies on darkness and, just insane technical fury, one of them was off in their own world. Seriously. They were wearing Bermuda shorts, collaborating with hip-hop legends, and writing songs about Stephen King novels. So yeah, this is their story.
So where did this all start? Well, forget the sunny California coast where their peers came from. We're heading to the gritty streets of New York City back in 1981 to find out how the East Coast thrash kings got their start.
All right, so when you hear people throw around the term the Big Four, they're basically talking about the Mount Rushmore of American thrash metal. You've got Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and of course, Anthrax. These were the bands that really took this new, aggressive genre and put it on a global stage.
And what about that name, right? You'd think it came from some dark, ancient text or something. Nope. It came from a high school biology textbook. Rhythm guitarist Scott Ian, who's been the one constant member this whole time, just saw the word anthrax and thought, yeah, that sounds sufficiently evil. It was that simple, and that shocking choice became totally iconic. Okay, so with a name that definitely got people's attention and a lineup that was starting to lock in, Anthrax was just ready to explode. We're now jumping into their absolute meteoric rise in the mid to late 80s, an era that was just defined by one classic album after another. And they were insanely prolific. I mean, just look at this run. From their debut Fistful of Metal in '84, they just fired off 5 genre-defining albums in only 6 years. This wasn't some slow burn. This was a straight-up thrash metal wildfire. Now, the real key piece of the puzzle fell into place in 1984. That's when singer Joey Belladonna came on board. His voice, this powerful, high-flying vocal style, was completely different from the gravelly shouts of other thrash singers. It gave Anthrax this unique, melodic edge that really made them stand out from the pack. And this is where their personality just went into overdrive. While all their peers were deep into themes of war and Satanism, Anthrax was basically geeking out over their favorite stuff. Their massive album Among the Living had songs about the comic book hero Judge Dredd, Stephen King's epic novel The Stand, and even a tribute to the comedian John Belushi. Nobody else in the scene was doing anything even close to that. But, their willingness to just go for it didn't stop with the lyrics. In 1991, they made a move that sent shockwaves through the rock and the hip-hop worlds. And honestly, it changed music forever. When Anthrax joined forces with the hip-hop legends Public Enemy to redo Bring the Noise, it was so much more than a gimmick. Back then, music genres were super segregated. This was a real, powerful fusion of two different worlds. And that one track, it basically laid the blueprint for the entire rap metal and nu metal scene that would completely take over the late 90s. But after hitting a peak like that, both creatively and commercially, sometimes the only way to go is down. And the 1990s, well, that decade turned out to be one of massive change, lineup shuffles, and just some seriously bad luck for the band. The biggest switch-up happened in 1992, when they fired Joey Belladonna. His replacement, John Bush, brought a completely different energy. The sound veered away from that classic thrash metal and got darker, more influenced by grunge and alternative metal. The lyrics got more serious, and Bush's lower, grittier voice just created a whole new vibe. And the stakes were just unbelievably high. Right before this big change, the band signed a massive $10 million record deal with Elektra Records. Their first album with Bush, Sound of White Noise, was a hit. But man, the pressure was on. What came next was just a disastrous run with record labels right when the whole industry was changing. First, Elektra just failed to promote their next album. Then, they signed with a new indie label, Ignition, which goes bankrupt right when their next record drops. And then, you can't make this up, their next label, Beyond Records, also goes out of business. It was just the string of unbelievable bad luck that honestly would have killed most bands. But Anthrax just kept going. After a whole decade of instability, The 2010s saw the band stage one of the most incredible comebacks in all of metal history. And it was all sparked by the return of a very, very familiar voice. So in 2010, Joey Belladonna officially rejoined the band, and the impact was immediate. Just look at their US album chart peaks. Worship Music in 2011 hit number 12, their best showing in almost 20 years. Then its follow-up, For All Kings, climbed even higher to number 9. The comeback was for real. And it wasn't just about record sales. The industry really took notice. The reunited band picked up 3 Grammy nominations in a row between 2012 and 2014. That just proved their creative fire was burning just as brightly as it ever had. So, after all the ups, all the downs, where does Anthrax fit in music history? What is their ultimate legacy?
Well, first let's just look at the raw numbers, which are pretty staggering. Over their career, Anthrax has sold more than 10 million albums worldwide. I mean, by any standard, that makes them one of the most successful metal bands of all time.
But their real impact? It's their influence. From the groove metal of Pantera to the nu metal of Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Slipknot, all the way to modern metalcore giants like Killswitch Engage and Avenged Sevenfold, you can hear Anthrax's DNA all over the place. They didn't just play thrash, they kicked open the doors for countless other bands to walk through.
And that kind of brings us to today. After 4 decades of lineup changes, label disasters, genre-bending experiments, and these huge, triumphant comebacks, Anthrax is still here, still standing, and still making music. It really just leaves you with one question. What noise will they bring next?